There's a kind of strength this world doesn't often understand, the strength of silence. When someone hurts you, everyone expects noise. They expect anger, reaction, confrontation. But silence is different. Silence is power under control. It's calm in the middle of chaos. It's the quiet decision to protect your peace rather than prove your point. Most people think silence is weakness, that saying nothing means you've been defeated. But silence is not surrender. It's self-mastery. It's the moment you realize that reacting to pain doesn't heal it. It only feeds it. The loudest reaction is not always the strongest response. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all, because silence doesn't mean you're ignoring what happened. It means you're choosing not to let it define your state of mind. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the one who learns to stay silent becomes unshakable. Because silence isn't emptiness. It's presence. It's awareness. Understanding that peace is not found in what you say to others, but in what you say to yourself when the noise fades. It's realizing that your energy is sacred, and not every situation deserves access to it. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the refinement of it. It's what separates the impulsive from the wise, the restless from the grounded. When you choose silence in the face of hurt, you're not losing control, you're proving that you already have it. So remember this, you don't always have to respond to everything that challenges you. You don't have to explain, defend, or react. Sometimes your silence will say more than 1,000 words ever could. Because silence is not weakness. It's the voice of strength that speaks without sound. When someone hurts you, your first instinct is to react, to defend yourself, to speak, to prove your worth. But true strength isn't found in reaction, it's found in restraint. Silence is not the absence of response, it's the presence of control. When you remain silent, you're not surrendering, you're mastering yourself. You're showing that your peace cannot be disturbed by someone else's chaos. That's real power. Most people believe that silence is weakness because they mistake noise for strength. They think the louder you are, the more powerful you seem. But noise only hides insecurity. The one who is truly strong doesn't need to shout to prove their worth. They know who they are. They don't need to explain it. Silence is the language of those who have conquered their emotions. It's a calm declaration that says, I will not let your energy control mine. When someone hurts you and you stay silent, it doesn't mean you didn't feel the pain. It means you've chosen to rise above it. You've decided that their actions will not define your response. You're not avoiding the situation, you're choosing your peace over the temptation to react. That takes courage, because silence demands self-discipline, and self-discipline is the foundation of mastery. There's a kind of strength that comes only from stillness. When you stop reacting to every attack, you start seeing things as they are. You begin to understand that people's actions are reflections of their own battles, not your worth. Their words come from their wounds. Their cruelty comes from their confusion. And when you see that clearly, you realize there's no need to fight back. You don't have to lower yourself to the level of those still learning what peace feels like. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough to protect your energy. It means you've learned that not every action deserves a reaction, that not every insult requires defense. When you respond with silence, you stop feeding the fire that was meant to consume you. You let it burn out on its own, because some battles are won not by striking back, but by stepping back. People often confuse silence with indifference, but it's the opposite. Silence is awareness. It's observing without absorbing. It's understanding that your power is in your composure. When you choose silence, you communicate more than words ever could. You show emotional intelligence, patience, and self-respect. You show that you are not controlled by anger, but guided by wisdom. And yes, silence can be uncomfortable. It forces both you and others to sit with truth. It exposes what words try to hide. But that discomfort is where growth happens, because silence gives you space to feel, to think, to heal. It prevents regret. How many times have people spoken in anger only to wish later they had stayed quiet? Words can wound, but silence can protect. So when someone tries to hurt you, don't let them pull you into their storm. Stand still in your calm. Don't respond to everything that challenges your peace. Let your silence be your shield. Because strength isn't about how loud you roar, it's about how quietly you endure without losing yourself. Silence is not emptiness, it is awareness, it is understanding. When someone hurts you and you choose silence, you are not pretending it didn't happen. You are choosing to see beyond it. You are saying, I refuse to become what hurt me. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Most people react because they want to be understood, they want to be heard, they want justice. But sometimes the greatest justice is peace. And peace comes when you no longer allow another person's behavior to dictate your state of mind. When you stay silent after being hurt, you create space. A sacred space between what was done to you and how you will respond. That space is where clarity is born. That's where you begin to understand that not every action deserves your energy. Because energy is power, and where you place it determines what grows in your life. If you waste it on reacting, you strengthen the very thing that tried to break you. But when you stay silent, you reclaim your power. You say, you cannot control me. Silence teaches you to observe. It allows you to see people for who they truly are, not who they pretend to be. When someone hurts you and you resist the urge to react, you start to notice patterns. How people project their pain, how they seek to provoke others to validate their bitterness. But when you stay still, you break the cycle. You stop the chain of emotional violence that travels from one wounded heart to another. You become the one who says, the pain stops here. You see, silence reveals truth. Words can distort, manipulate, or conceal, but silence exposes. When you don't react, people begin to see the difference between your peace and their chaos. Your calm becomes a mirror, reflecting everything they tried to hide. That's why silence makes people uncomfortable, because it confronts them with themselves. But silence isn't easy. It takes training. It takes a deep sense of awareness to stand still when your heart is burning, to hold your tongue when your pride wants to speak. Yet that restraint is the mark of a disciplined mind. Anyone can react in anger. It takes mastery to respond with stillness. Silence is the test of your inner strength, of how much control you have over yourself. Because the one who controls themselves can never truly be controlled by anyone else. Silence also teaches forgiveness, not the kind that says what happened was okay, but the kind that frees you from carrying the poison of resentment. When you don't respond, when you don't seek revenge, you're telling the world that you've chosen healing over hatred. You've chosen growth over bitterness. You've chosen to rise instead of remain stuck in the pain. And sometimes silence is louder than any response. People remember it, they feel it, it lingers. Because silence has weight. It doesn't vanish like words, it echoes. It reminds others that not every wound requires noise, that not every insult deserves recognition. In silence you speak a higher language, one that only those who have mastered their emotions can understand. So when someone hurts you, don't let their actions drag you into reaction. Take a breath, step back, observe. Let silence do the talking for you. Because silence doesn't mean you lost the battle. It means you won yourself. There's a moment right after someone hurts you when everything inside you wants to fight back. You want to explain yourself, prove your worth, show them that their words or actions can't define you. But in that exact moment, silence becomes your greatest power. Because silence doesn't mean you are defeated. It means you've evolved beyond the need for validation. It means you've realized that peace is far more valuable than proving a point. When you choose silence, you're not avoiding confrontation, you're mastering it internally. You're saying, I don't need to lower myself to match your chaos. That's strength, that's discipline. Too often we equate silence with submission. We think that if we don't respond, we've allowed someone to win. But what are they really winning? A reaction, your energy, your peace? That's not victory. That's dependency. They feed on your reaction. They thrive on your emotional response. But when you stay calm, when you stay grounded, you starve their need for control. You remind them that your state of mind is not something they can influence. That's the quiet dominance of silence. It takes deep understanding to know when to speak and when to stay still, because silence is not absence, it's awareness. It's choosing not to engage in a battle that leads nowhere. Think about it. If someone throws dirt at you and you throw it back, you both end up filthy. But if you simply step aside, they're left covered in their own mess. That's what silence does. It allows you to rise above instead of sink below. Silence is also a teacher. It teaches patience, observation, and restraint. It gives you time to feel without reacting, to think before responding. And in that stillness, you begin to see things more clearly. You start to recognize that most hurtful actions are not personal. People act from their pain, their insecurities, their confusion. When they lash out, they're projecting their internal chaos outward. And when you understand that, it becomes easier to not take their words to heart. Silence becomes compassion, not for them, but for yourself. You protect your mind from absorbing energy that doesn't belong to you. There's a beauty in walking away from what disturbs your peace. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your mental space. You don't have to justify your silence to those who misunderstand it. The truth is, silence can't be explained. It can only be felt. It's that quiet strength that others can't comprehend, the kind that unsettles those who expect a fight and receive stillness instead. But don't mistake silence for passivity. It doesn't mean you accept disrespect or tolerate injustice. It means you are wise enough to know that reacting emotionally only feeds the fire. You choose to respond when your mind is calm and your heart is clear. You act not out of anger, but out of intention. That's real power, the ability to stay unmoved in the face of provocation. And the most powerful part about silence is that it speaks volumes without uttering a word. It sends a message that your peace is not for sale. It tells the world that your focus is not on fighting battles that don't build you, but on mastering yourself. It's a reminder that growth often looks like saying nothing at all. So when someone hurts you, remember, silence is not about them. It's about you. It's your way of saying, I choose peace over pride, growth over reaction, wisdom over impulse, because in silence you find your strength. In silence you win. When someone hurts you, it's easy to feel the rush of emotions. Anger, disappointment, sadness, betrayal. Those feelings come fast and heavy, and the natural instinct is to release them. But the truth is, reacting in that state rarely brings relief. It only deepens the wound. Silence, on the other hand, gives those emotions space to settle. It allows you to step back from the storm instead of being swallowed by it. In silence, you begin to see the difference between reacting out of pain and responding out of understanding. That's where real strength lives. Not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. The world today glorifies loudness. Everyone wants to have the last word, to prove they are right, to show they cannot be disrespected. But the loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. Strength is not about raising your voice, it's about raising your awareness. When you respond with silence, you shift from ego to wisdom. You remind yourself that peace is not found in shouting back, but in staying centered. The one who can remain calm when provoked has already won half the battle, because silence means you are no longer controlled by external forces. You are ruled by inner discipline. When you choose silence after being hurt, you give yourself the gift of reflection. You start to see things as they are, not as your emotions paint them. You realize that most of the time, the person who hurt you is acting out of their own pain, confusion, or immaturity. They want to drag you into their storm because they don't know how to handle their own. But when you stay still, when you refuse to be pulled in, you send a message without saying a word that your peace is not negotiable. Silence gives you perspective. It allows you to ask deeper questions. What is this teaching me? What can I learn about myself from this moment? When you stay quiet long enough, pain starts to transform into wisdom. You begin to see that every hurt was not a punishment, but a lesson, a chance to grow stronger, to rise above, to understand yourself more deeply. Without silence, you miss that lesson. You get caught in the noise of reaction and lose the clarity that comes from reflection. Sometimes silence is misunderstood. People think you're avoiding the issue, being weak, or letting someone get away with their belief. True silence isn't avoidance, it's control. You control what deserves your energy, your words, and your attention. You no longer let people pull you into unnecessary wars. That's not weakness, that's maturity. The strong don't always fight back. Sometimes they just walk away, knowing that peace is worth more than being right. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. Healing begins. Because silence is not just about others, it's about you. It's a space where you start to rebuild your peace, where you remind yourself that your value doesn't depend on how someone treats you, but on how you treat yourself. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you are choosing growth over pain, mastery over impulse. Remember this, silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening within. You are processing, understanding, evolving. You are learning that sometimes the best way to protect your energy is not to fight, but to rise above. Because when you rise above, no one can touch you. So when someone hurts you, don't rush to respond. Let your silence speak. Let it echo louder than anger, longer than pride, and deeper than pain. Because in silence, you discover your real power. The power to remain unshaken when the world tries to shake you. There comes a time when silence becomes more than just the absence of words. It becomes a declaration of peace. When someone hurts you, the silence that follows is not about ignoring them. It's about respecting yourself. You reach a point where you understand that not every battle deserves your presence. Not every insult deserves your reaction. And not every person deserves your energy. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. You begin to see that silence is not a wall between you and the world. It's a shield that protects your peace from unnecessary noise. When you respond with silence, you take away the power others think they have over you. They expect you to react, to break, to defend yourself. But when you stay calm, when you stand still, they are forced to face their own actions without distraction. Your silence becomes their mirror. It shows them their own reflection, their own flaws, their own guilt. And that's often more powerful than any argument. Because silence doesn't defend you, it reveals truth. It shows who has self-control and who doesn't. It shows who holds peace and who carries chaos. There's great discipline in silence. It requires awareness, it requires understanding, and most importantly, it requires faith. Faith that you don't need to fight every injustice with noise, that life will handle what's meant to be handled. When you're hurt, your first instinct might be to speak, to explain, to justify. But with time, you realize that those who truly see you don't need explanations, and those who don't will twist your words anyway. Silence saves you from that exhaustion. It gives you energy to move forward instead of wasting it trying to change what can't be changed. Sometimes silence is your closure. Not every wound will be mended through conversation. Some people won't understand you, no matter how deeply you explain. Some situations won't heal, no matter how hard you try to fix them. Silence becomes your way of saying, I release this. You stop waiting for apologies, for understanding, for validation. You stop trying to make others see your side. You let it go. And in that letting go, you set yourself free. Because true healing doesn't come when someone says sorry. It comes when you stop needing them to. And silence doesn't mean you forget. It means you've accepted. It means you've decided not to carry the weight of resentment any longer. You're not pretending the pain didn't happen. You're just refusing to let it define your future. You're choosing to respond to life with peace instead of reaction, with awareness instead of anger. That's real strength. That's what it means to evolve. You see, silence isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering it. It's about reaching a place within yourself where nothing external can disturb your inner stillness. You stop being a slave to impulse and you start becoming the master of your own energy. That's what true freedom looks like. Not in the noise of proving yourself, but in the calm of knowing yourself. So when someone hurts you and you choose silence, understand that it's not just about them. It's about you honoring your peace. It's about protecting your mind from chaos, your heart from bitterness, and your spirit from being dragged down to a lower vibration. You choose silence not because you can't speak, but because you don't need to. Because the moment you realize your peace is worth more than any argument, you'll stop wasting words trying to make noise in places that deserve your quiet. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the mark of someone who has learned that peace will always speak louder than pride.